My name is Lonnie. I am Lady Braven of the Pride, and I am passionate about inspiring, encouraging, and empowering people to stand up, to speak out, and take action in defense of the things that they love and value in this world. And this is why I created the Brave Book series. Today, I have Dr. Dena Churchill on with me. She is one of the authors of The Brave, Courage During Beep, not saying that word. And today we're going to be talking about her chapter in the book. And we're also going to be catching up with everything that she's had going on over the last year. There's a lot. It's been a year since she wrote this chapter. But to start off, I would like to introduce Dr. Churchill by reading out her bio. Okay. Dr. Dena Churchill is an international speaker, author, innovator in women's health and wellness. She is known for her ability to deeply connect with audiences through clarity, wisdom, and humor. With a humble confidence, she draws on a wealth of real-life experiences to help you envision and achieve your best in a way that is both entertaining and informative. Dr. Dena combines the ageless wisdom of the mind-body-spirit balance, integrating her studies in psychology, astrology, biology, nutrition, neurology, chiropractic, and spirituality to provide you with the fresh ideas in healing and transformation. She is the author of the book entitled Divinity in Divorce, contributing author to Pearls of Wisdom, Pure and Powerful, and the Thought That Changed Your Life Forever. Publicly, she aspires to be a legislative influencer. Privately, she is a health coach of quantum healing medical astrology. In January 2019, after 22 years in private family practice, Dr. Dena surrendered her chiropractic license to avoid further persecution and in suspension and fines for speaking out or speaking about the dangers of vaccines and vaccine injury. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm very, very honored to have this conversation with you. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, Lonnie. Fabulous. How are you?
Great, great. Thank you very much. I love these conversations. I get to learn so much more about the authors in these books and some of the struggles and the challenges that they've been through. I am going to read out a small portion of your chapter. I think it's a really powerful chapter, and you have a really powerful story that is going to inspire a lot of people. This is why I think that people should go out and get this book. This book is meant to activate or call upon your own courage and give you some inspiration to start taking action for a lot of the people who are just realizing how corrupt the government and the medical system is. But before that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your personal journey and your experience and why you had to step away from your chiropractic practice.
Why did I have to step away?
I know that's a light way of putting it, but
yeah, well, and we talked about this just before we came on live, but most people that are speaking out now in the movement, the strongest people have been pained in some way, and I feel like that pain is really what fuels the purpose forward. So I started seeing vaccine injuries in my practice. So I would do a well baby visit, and the baby is fine, has all the neurological signs and symptoms normal. And then after a series of vaccines, we would see neurological injury. So I started asking questions, not only of my provincial health department, but also of our federal health department and Justin Trudeau. I crawled over a crowd of people at the stadium in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia to hand him this synopsis of all the research that I'd done. and got a letter back from the Prime Minister's office saying that they were looking at it, but then of course it didn't go anywhere. So I think I was put on the radar because I was asking a lot of questions.
Right.
And then in 2019, we were given a directive from the health department to our chiropractic association that all chiropractors mustn't comment on any vaccines, vaccine injuries. All the information had to go through public health. So I accommodated that in my private practice, but in my own personal views, like my blog, my social media, I refused to censor my views. And because of that, I was charged, and I had to go through different hearings. My association called me delusional for those views, and eventually after $200,000 in fines, because they had hired a team of lawyers then to investigate and follow all my social media and send me all the documents that I would, at one point there were 400 pages double-sided of texts, posts that I'd done on Facebook, for example, or Instagram. So it became a struggle, really, just to hold my license and to speak truth. So I really couldn't sleep at night knowing that young mothers were coming in with babies and that I couldn't give them information so they could make informed consent. That was always kind of the basis of regulated health. Was informed consent. You give people the choice and allow them to make their own. You give people information and allow them to make their own choices. So I surrendered my license. My lawyer and I were going to take it to the Supreme Court of Canada, right? Freedom of speech. But my mom was diagnosed with cancer around that same time. And at that point, I felt it was better to put my resources, my time and energy and love into her healing instead of fighting in the courts. So I surrendered my license as a way to avoid these fines and further persecution, in the way of hearings and public embarrassing articles. And, CBC wrote an article, delusional incompetent chiropractor owes $100,000. So yeah, it was a personal choice based on pain to surrender my license. So then I can speak freely about dangers of injecting chemicals into your body.
Right. And you have been speaking freely ever since and speaking out in the freedom movement and sharing your information. I was following you for quite a while there on Facebook, but and I know that you've gone through your rounds of censorship for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I think we all have, right? Are you on any other platforms now? And do you have any continuous daily shows or videos that you do?
So in the book, right, there was, you had put some links for me.
Oh,
and most of those now are not working.
okay. Well, this is good to know.
I've been censored off of Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And when I try to click on a YouTube video, it tells me that I am suspended from using Google products. So I think right now my blog, healthtruth.blog, where I do my writings, and there's kind of where I muse and share philosophies and information that I've gathered. And
Right.
also my BitChute channel, which is on there, but it's not under Dena Churchill, it's under my email. So it's dr.denagc@gmail.com. So I try to do videos. I love doing videos. I love sort of sharing the information as I'm gathering it in. And as we've talked about, when you're talking to other people, you gain insight and it sort of expands your mind to look at things differently. So I really love doing interviews, and I've done a few over the last few years.
Yeah, well, you speak very well and very clearly. And I was just having this conversation earlier that communication skills are so important, and the words that we use are so important. When we're trying to connect with other people, we have to be able to speak in a way that they can hear us, with compassion, in a way that they can hear us and they can resonate with the information that we're sharing. And I think that you do that very well. So
Thank you. Well, Lonnie, I am just so grateful to be a part of this project. And when you told me that like all the different books are different colors that affect different energy chakras, I
Yeah.
just think that is amazing. It's really developing the books and developing an audience as our evolution and our ascension happens. So I'm really grateful to be a part of what you're building. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much as well. And like we discussed earlier, I feel like we're all stepping into our calling, right? We're all stepping into our path and our purpose and our reason for being here. And we're doing it with passion. Like, this is what I'm doing. And it's not about the money. I'm not making any money. It is all about the passion and about my desire to help people awaken, help people elevate their consciousness, help people heal, help people expand their awareness, utilize their clairsenses. I just want to inspire, encourage, and empower people. And I want to remind them how incredibly divine we all are, and that we all have that connection to our own higher self if we can learn how to communicate with that. Yeah, so thank you.
I think pain, you said passion, right? Passion means pain. So pain is the way in. I mean, I think there's two ways you can inspire somebody. You can get somebody to move with inspiration, but I think pain is much more efficient.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient. It's quicker and it gives you a lot more fuel.
You're right.
Right.
You know why? Because we're all forged by the fire, and it's the most difficult lessons, the most difficult experiences that we have in life that teach us the most.
That's it.
You're absolutely right. And that brings me to I'm just going to read this one paragraph out of your chapter, and I really want people to go get the book. So I'm not going to give too much of it away, but I want to read this one chapter. In your chapter is it's chapter number 15, and it's called Fuel Purpose. Okay, here we go. Courage uses fear to fuel a purposeful path. You have a choice to fear the fire or become the flame. This is right in alignment with what we were just talking about. When you become the flame, you have everlasting life. When it is time to pass over into the next lifetime, you travel light, knowing you did your best with what you know, believe, and have. Humanity is a fatal condition, but love is an eternal legacy. Acting now with God as your highest authority, you become immortal. Speak truth, share love, be the change. William Wallace said, "Run and you'll live, at least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom." Woo! I got goosebumps reading out that from William Wallace. Live enslaved or die free. I love that. And I love how you added that to the end. And I couldn't agree more. That was a very powerful quote from William Wallace.
Well, I said that to my son, and he said, "Mom, why are you quoting Braveheart?" I said, "I don't know.
How relevant is it?"
Yeah, I felt that was what represented brave to me. And he said, "You realize that they put that guy, up on the stage and tore his guts out with a meat hook." He said, "Are you sure you want to put that in your chapter?" And I said, "Yes." But I have to tell you a quick story about flames and my son and pain to bring that all together. So he's 24 now, and he says, "Mom, remember that time you let me burn myself in the candle?" And I said, "No, I don't remember that time." He said, "Well, I was playing with the flame, and I was asking you what would happen if I put my finger in the fire, and you said, 'Try it.'" And he said, "I burnt myself. I can't believe that, you let me do that." And I said to him at that point, I said, "Dominic, pain is a great teacher." And at 24 now, he gets it, right? It was better for him to burn himself while I was there, right, to help him or to put out, hose him down or whatever I needed to do. But, it taught him something. So fear the fire, become the flame was something that came to me, and it was kind of all in that same time.
Right. And you know, what's interesting is that I've always believed that we're all forged by the fire. So it's there are most difficult and painful moments um, that make us who we are. Right. So I really believe in that. But for the last 20 years, I have to tell you that I fell down for a living. And being a stunt woman in Hollywood and television and film, now I say, I'm no longer falling down for a living. I'm standing up because I have something to say. So I walked away from my 20-year career because this is what I'm doing now with passion and purpose. So
Well, we're all so thankful that you did, because you've developed, right, and brought all these amazing authors together to kind of develop this movement. But you know, you said, you know, you were pained, and our jobs have pains. Yours maybe more than most, but you reached a pinnacle where it became more painful to stay when they added on those extra restrictions and, you know,
yeah,
testing and shoving things up your nose and wanting you to inject with chemicals and whatever, you know, there was more pain to stay than to leave.
right,
So I think, again, we talked about this before, but it's that breaking of your heart that I think actually opens your heart to your higher purpose. So I
absolutely.
really feel like the pain is a part of the lesson, right? It has to be there, and it has to reach that threshold that kind of pushes you into a new paradigm. Otherwise, we stay in our discomfort and sit in our discomfort. So I almost think, because of that, you know, if we reward courage too much without giving reprimand on the other side, we can create complacency, because somebody will say, oh, well, they're courageous and I'm not, right? So I think that pain and reprimand for things that aren't correct really is what we're missing in our society. And I think we can overcompensate, you know, like feed my dog treats when he does his poop, right? When he has a bowel movement. But now he will not poop unless I give him a treat. You know, I have conditioned, right, a response where if you're internally motivated, if you're inspired to do something, no
Yeah.
one has to caress you from the outside. They can call you, you know, the Christ or the Antichrist, or courage, or brave, or delusional, right? You won't need that. You won't need that acceptance. You won't need that validation, I think, you know, from the outside world, when you're inspired from within. Motivation takes, you know, somebody has to motivate you to do something. But when you're inspired, like what you're doing now, like you said, you know, maybe you're not getting paid in the same way that you were paid in your job, but when it's inspiration, when you're loving what you do, it's just like it's its own reward almost.
Yeah, so I always think of the word as inspiration as coming from spirit, right?
Yes.
So I feel like I've really stepped into my calling and my path and my purpose and what I'm doing right now. And I feel like so many people across the country have really done this as well. But uh, the thing about courage, from the way that I look at it, is courage and vulnerability are the same thing. If you listen to Brene Brown, she explained it really well, how you cannot be vulnerable without also being courageous, and you cannot be courageous without also being vulnerable, because the act of being courageous means that you're putting something on the line. You're risking something, that there is amount of perceived a possibility of pain involved. So, in order to be vulnerable, even in order to love or open your heart, that is a courageous act. And it's not easy. It's not easy because people are so incredibly controlled by their fears.
Yes.
And yeah, so when they're controlled by their fears, they're so afraid of that pain that they won't take action against it. So, from my perspective, the way I understand courage is that when they find that courage within them, and it comes from their heart, courage comes from the heart, 𝐸𝐻, the word la 𝐸𝐻. When they find that courage to stand up to the things that they're afraid of, that is a courageous act. And that doesn't necessarily, it's not something that you can really motivate somebody into. It's something that they have to have that internal calling, but that internal calling also comes from spirit. So they can be inspired. And they can also be empowered by teaching them how to take back their power. You empower them, and then they can start making courageously aligned decisions that are in alignment with their values and their goals. So yeah, this whole concept of being courageous during these times is like, I think it's really important. It's one of the most important virtues from my perspective, because without courage, none of the other values matter, because people won't have the courage to be integrable, or to be compassionate, or to be honest, or, you know, to pursue their passions, unless they have the courage first and foremost. So I guess that's why I'm passionate about inspiring people. And you know what? I really appreciate the focus on words and their internal meaning and where they come from, because every word has so much power. Now, I know that you started off your chapter saying that you didn't feel like you were brave. I personally disagree. I see you as very brave, and I think probably thousands of people across the country see you as very brave. But do you want to explain why that you don't think that your actions are brave?
You know, it was almost like a self-preserving action to surrender my license, because I couldn't really live with myself knowing that these vaccine injuries were happening and that I wasn't saying anything. So it's almost like what a loving humanity does is protect its young.
Yeah.
So to label that courage or bravery for what seems like should be normalcy in a loving world seems overcompensating, you know, the actions somehow. So I appreciate, you know, and I'm honored that you think that way about me. But for me, it was just what I had to do for my soul, you know, to be able to live with myself. And you mentioned about, you know, courage and the heart. So I believe that it's connecting to your heart and understanding what it is you need for yourself. I think today's world, you know, we're so caught up in what's happening out there, right? We're all stuck to our social media, that we're in our mind instead of in our heart. So when we can take the time to feel that through, then we know where to move. And maybe that is courage, is following your own heart. So if we put it in that paradigm, you know, I can agree.
Oh, I love that. And I agree with you so much, because the reason that I did the things that I did as well, the reason I walked away is because my soul just said no. My soul said no way. My soul refused. And I haven't worn a mask the entire time, and I never will, because I know what the mask is. The mask is all about mind control and compliance and obedience. And I want to encourage people to start understanding what it means to stand under your own authority instead of under somebody else's authority. And yeah, my soul just said no way. And I think that soul guidance is something that a lot of people probably are missing in their lives. They are so connected to their 3D reality and their ego mind that they haven't really developed that connection, that soul guidance connection that I'm encouraging people to start developing now. I think this is the time, definitely, for people to start remembering how powerful they are and how divine they are, and how capable they are, and how much they deserve everything that they desire in this life. You know, I feel like the systems of control, the government, the medical system, they've all been designed to disempower us, to take away all of our confidence, and take away our courage, and take away our ability to believe in ourselves. Oh my goodness. I mean, the things they teach kids in school these days, why don't they teach kids how to love themselves? That's the most important thing in this whole entire existence, is learning about self-love and learning that we are capable of absolutely anything that we put our minds to.
So I think with
So,
the, if I might comment on the school system, the school system has been organized, the traditional school system, by the government. So they have an agenda, which is not inspiring creativity and encouraging self-love. So I think the new school systems that are being developed out of this pain, the homeschool programs and the Waldorf school programs, forest school programs that we have here in Nova Scotia, are really stimulating, a new path. And you mentioned authorities. I think that we have to be hurt by different authorities in order to find our own. So I said in a talk that I did recently, there's not going to be a priest, a pope, a politician that's going to save you. Right? It's not on the outside. Not even Jesus can save you until you've owned your own divine spark. Right? So
right.
people put the onus on the responsibility for their own growth and protection and learning on the outside, when it's actually on the inside. And
Mhm.
when you find that, then you develop your own school system, you develop your own circle, you develop your own job like you've done, right? You develop your own path forward.
Mhm.
But it has to come from being, burned by different authorities. So here we are,
Yeah.
developing in the world, right?
I agree 100%. And we've got the same kind of new paradigm of schooling systems here in British Columbia. We've got the forest schools, we've got the Waldorf, we've got homeschooling, we've got different programs like that. And I've always believed, I don't have any children, but I've always believed that if I was going to have children, that I was going to homeschool them. I think that's really powerful. And to be honest, my mother had a daycare, so she passed away when I was 10 years old, but up until then, we always had kids over, and she was always getting us involved in different projects and, different art projects and hiking and camping and horseback riding and all these different things. And I feel like all of the most important things that I've learned in this life that I'm currently using, I learned from my mom. I mean, I graduated high school, I went to college, I got a diploma in computer information systems. I'm not using any of that information with what I'm currently doing. I was a fitness instructor, and I traveled around the world for 3 years on cruise ships. And then I fell down for a living as a stunt woman in TV and film. I mean, everything in my life has led me to who I am today, but what I'm trying to say is I learned a lot from my mom.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that homeschooling and those new kind of schooling systems are the future, because the current schooling system, the government schooling system or the public schooling system, I think it's corrupt. I think it's dark. I think it's satanic. And I think everything that they're teaching children, hopefully parents will be able to unteach their children and unprogram them of all of those things.
You know,
Hopefully.
well, you said something earlier about empowering others. And I think that we can give people information and we can send an example, but the empowerment we have to kind of leave up to them.
Mhm.
And because we're asking them the freedom to allow us to be who we are, we allow them the freedom to be who they are. Some people will wear a mask, right? Will inject themselves.
Mhm.
And what I've had to learn is, we've talked about, there's friends and family that will just disconnect. And it's just because of how it is.
Right.
Now it's a time, for a period of time we come together like the seasons, we learn from each other, and then we kind of move on. So now our friends and family are of a different resonance. They're people that understand more their soul path, and we're collecting, right, in soul groups. So I think the best way to empower and inspire others is really to just be you and
Right.
do it with all the soulful energy and enthusiasm and inspiration that you can. And just by doing that, I think, your vibration kind of reverberates out into the universe and into the matrix. So
Wow.
that's
I
what I.
love that. And I agree as well. And that's what you're doing. So your website is www.healthtruth.com. That's your
Dot blog,
website. And sorry?
dot blog, healthtruth.blog,
That's great.
BLOG. Yeah.
Okay, and that's where you share relevant health information, current issues that come up, and you have conversations about the current state of the world. Um, are you offering any services right now? You're not doing chiropractic anymore, but you did mention, I did read in your bio that you have some experience with spirituality and psychology. Are you doing any kind of coaching or therapy?
So I do with family and friends, and in a smaller group where, yeah, in a smaller controlled group.
Mhm.
But what I'm doing is an astrology chart, a natal chart. Are you familiar with astrology at all?
A little bit.
So
Yeah.
at the time you're born, the planets are in such a position in the sky that that position or fingerprint doesn't happen again for 25,000 years. So
Mhm.
where the planets are and the position of the moon and the phase of the moon kind of affects you and your body and your health, the foods that are helpful for you, the exercises that are helpful, your purpose or your path in life. You talked about Dharma and your purpose is your north node, and that's a mathematical point. So by aligning and sharing that information with people, it helps them to align to their true power, their higher power. And then using energy principles in a system called the Genius Biofeedback program, it takes
Mm.
a picture of you and a voice print, and it gives you a printout of all the different frequencies in your body. And then using tones, biofeedback, it balances your energies. So your body heals sort of from a vibrational level. So I'm really inspired to kind of work with energies, not only from this plane, but also, what's happening in the cosmos and seeing how everything fits together. It's just magnificent, to see how the universe is all connected in this one matrix. So I'm
Oh,
really in that. And again, as you said, right, in my other profession, in my chiropractic profession, I had to wear a certain hat. I was in a certain box. But now that I've been, jumped out of that box, now it just opens a whole new paradigm where I can use my skills of healing and nutrition and energy and spirituality. But now I'm creating my own box, like you have, right, with your series.
I find this fascinating. I have had biofeedback done to me before. It was an overall health kind of a check. Um, but I would actually really be interested in the biofeedback that connects to your voice and tells you about the frequencies that you're holding in your body. That is fascinating to me. And if anybody else wanted to have this, one of these readings done, how would they get a hold of you? Through your website
Health,
or?
yeah, healthtruth.blog. And I'd love to do that for you, complimentary.
Ah,
Uh, so connect with me afterwards.
okay, yes, I will. Thank you
It's
very
really,
much.
it's truly amazing. I scan myself every day and my family, and it's, Rife. So Royal Rife, he was a guy that developed microscopes, the electron microscopes. And this was back in 1888, until 1971. But he was studying how frequency could actually explode different bacteria, could, get rid of cancer cells. And it was the American Medical Association and the American Cancer Association that really didn't like what he had to say, right?
Right.
They discredit him because, of course, they wouldn't make their money, right, in
That's
pharmaceuticals.
how we know it's true.
That's how we know it's true.
Yeah.
So he was discovering back then, and he developed certain microscopes where he could look at live blood analysis and see how these frequencies would be affecting certain bacteria and parasites and that sort of thing. So it's and we can understand frequency if we look at an opera singer, right? If she can raise her voice to a certain pitch, she can break glass. So the frequency can affect the molecular structure of solids. Actually, I bought something out here because I was hoping that we could talk about this. This is a little ball. Can you see that there? It's a circuit. It measures energy, right? So a plus and a minus. So if I touch this side of the ball here and the other side, I am a current through myself. Right. So if we did this at our Easter dinner, our Christmas dinner, and my father's like, come on, we want to eat, food's getting cold. But I had everybody hold hands, and then I touched it on this side, and the person was on this side of me touched it here. And then we had somebody let go hands on the other side, and it broke the current. Right. So it shows how current kind of travels through us. And how powerful it is to touch someone, and also to use the frequency of our voice or frequency of tones to help sort of shift and change that frequency. And of course, you will know, like Tibetan singing bowls operate on that principle, different frequencies, solfeggio tones. 528 is a heart frequency. So yes, I'd love to work with you. Oh, excites me too.
Yeah, that really excites me, because I don't know if I told you this or not, but I am turning all 3 of my books, eventually all 4 of the books, into audiobooks. And so I am doing the narration. I thought it was really important that because these are the stories that I wanted to share. I wanted to share with my voice and my energy and my passion. I wanted to read the stories out and narrate them myself. But now that you're talking about the energy and the frequency that comes out of our voice, I am so interested in this, because this is what I want to share with people. I have a very unique voice. I know that. And I have a lot of things that I want to ask you and talk to you about that, definitely afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Yeah, and also the other thing about astrology, I've always been fascinated with it. I know that I'm a Leo. I know every time I've ever heard a description of a Leo, I'm like, well, that's me. And so I really resonate with that one star sign. And I personally don't know what time of day I was born. So I don't feel like I've ever gotten a really accurate, completely accurate reading, because I don't know when I was born. I know the day, but I don't know when I was born. And my mother's passed away, and my father doesn't remember, and I don't talk to anybody else in my family. So yeah, but astrology has also always been very interesting for me. And like you, I can see how all of these different healing modalities and these different ways of monitoring our energy and our frequency, and different ways of understanding our own soul purpose and our own personalities even. I can see how they're all connected. Everything is connected.
It is. And you mentioned the Leo, and most people look at like horoscopes, right? And their sun sign is generally, what you'd resonate, what you think about when you think about horoscopes or astrology. Mm-hmm. But your sun sign, it may be in the constellation of Leo, but your moon may be in another constellation. So there's 12 different planets. So my moon, for example, is in Capricorn. So Capricorn moons generally have businesses at home. I had my office at my house. They have sensitivities with gluten, for example. They tend to be more, business oriented. So depending on where your other planets are, we can learn a lot about your evolutionary purpose for being born this lifetime.
Right.
So, once you know that, and your birth time is important, but it's, we can get half the information not knowing your birth time. And then it just helps sort of you plan sort of the steps forward, and fills in some pieces that you might not even have a conscious access to, right? So it's exciting.
I find all of this very fascinating, and thank you for sharing all of that information. And you've got a couple other books out that people might be interested in. Where can they find that kind of information? Is that also on your website?
It's on the blog, the contact information. There's some books that weren't mentioned that I forgot to mention, but The Gift of the Hit is another book that I've participated in. And that's kind of that way, people's pains, whether it's a death, a divorce, Parkinson's, that have pushed them out into a different paradigm.
Right.
The Gift to the Hit, The Thought That Changed Your Life Forever. This was a book from, it was a #1 Amazon bestseller, actually. And
Mm.
people like Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, or Joe Dispenza were also authors. And in that book, it talks about how your thoughts are energy as well. And Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this, how it will reprogram or remyelinate nerves when you can think about something differently.
Mhm.
So that was a great book, Thought That Changed Your Life Forever, The Gift to the Hit, and then Pearls of Wisdom was written with 52 chiropractors from around the world. So it's almost like the first book, Divinity and Divorce, was when I was going through my divorce, right?
Right.
So I had to write it out for my own therapy.
Yeah.
Then as I progressed, right, the gift to the hit, now we're into the, whole scam of COVID.
Mhm.
And, this is, I was honored then to have another little part in your whole book. So, yeah, so the healthtruth.blog is where you can find the books. The links I will send to Amazon, except yours, because now I'm going to have a link, you told me, right?
Yeah. An
We
affiliate
discussed,
link.
you're going to send me a link so people can order right from my blog to
Yeah.
order the book, right?
Yeah. We'll set you
Okay.
up with an affiliate link so people can order the book. Yeah.
So I just wanted, if we had a minute, I just wanted to talk about the activities that I've done and what I've seen, how I can transform into a different path.
Okay.
So for the last year, I've been really heavily lobbying MLAs, members of Legislative Assembly, MPs, and our shared friend Susan Stanfield was, really a great mentor with that, because I didn't understand the difference between an MLA and an MP when I met Susan first. But this system now we know has a different set of values, right, than what we do.
Mhm.
And Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum has bragged and boasted that he owns half of the Canadian cabinet. So I can see, really trying to change that system that has a totally different set of values of one world government and looking at depopulation is almost like beating my head up against a wall.
Mm.
I keep hitting the door, realizing, what, that's not the door. So now in the last few months, I've been more focused on setting up communities, community meetings, creating kind of a soul group of friends like yourself that have similar mindset, similar heart set, and looking at ways that we can recreate new systems instead of trying to push our values into that system.
Right.
So lately it's been looking at how we can thrive and survive in this new world.
Right. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing. And that's actually more in alignment with the fourth book in my series. The fourth book in the Brave series is called The Brave Manifesting New Earth. And it's all about our powers of manifestation, visualization, focusing on the direction that we want to go, which is building new communities, new paradigms for health systems, new healing modalities, a new financial system, this concept of peace on earth, all of these things, right? This is the future that we want to work towards and go in that direction. And this is what we should be focusing on. This is like manifestation 101, right? Whatever you focus on is what you end up attracting into your experience. So 100%, I agree with everything that you're doing, building communities and educating people on possibilities and opportunities that are available to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm really doing it for myself. Again, it's wanting to have those people around.
Mhm.
And I just have came to the realization is that you can't change anyone but yourself. Like I had all these high hopes of changing the world when I surrendered my license, right? I was going to go out there and I was going to just share information with these MLAs and share information with the world. And they were going to wake up suddenly when they could see, all the injuries that were happening. Not true. They
Right.
have to come to their own awakening in their own time with their own pain. It's like when the fruit is ripe, it falls from the tree.
Right.
And to push that process is really not being soulful in your own expression.
Right.
So giving people the space to kind of find out when it's right for them to kind of make that jump, I think is
You're
honoring.
right. I 100% agree, because I feel like everybody's on their own journey, right?
Yeah.
And everybody is going to come to their own understanding, their own awakening. Everybody is going to learn their own life lessons. Over the last 2 years, I've come to the understanding that this is spiritual warfare. And what I mean by that is it is the light forces against the dark forces. And the greatest difference that any one of us can make is always to go within, because the battle is within us all, and to do our own healing work, to do our own personal growth work, to do our own spiritual work, whatever you want to call it. And whatever culture or religion that you're in, the greatest difference that any one of us can make is to go within. And Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see in the world. So we have to embody it. If we have a vision of something that we want to create, we have to embody that and be the change. I agree 100%.
I love Gandhi's quote, and Rudolf Steiner also says, in the ancient days, men of wisdom would not work out their thoughts. They would make time to receive them.
Okay.
So, we spend so much time, right? And I'm guilty of this too, right? On social media, here and email and doing things that we're not really creating time to listen to our own hearts. So I think if we can get quiet enough and we ask for the guidance, from our higher authority, our spiritual authority, then it comes, right? And then when you have that authority, you kind of know what to do, right? You work from that heartfelt space, that courageous heart, to know where to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always encouraged people, if they don't have necessarily that channel of communication, if they haven't developed it at this time, what they can do to start connecting with their own intuition and higher self-guidance is just start asking more questions. You start asking more questions, even if you're asking the empty space in front of you. You start asking more questions, and eventually the answers are going to start coming to you in all sorts of different ways. And when you can learn how to listen, hear, feel, know the answers, then that's when you're developing your own intuition and higher self-guidance. So just start asking more questions, people.
What's really helped me, Alani, was to write, because your hand is the connection between your heart and your head. So when I write down the question, often when I'm writing, right, it's my own therapy, because I'm asking the question and then I have to wait for the answer so I can continue to write. So I love that idea of writing down, and then you have kind of a physical manifestation of what the idea is. So journaling and writing has always been therapeutic for me.
Absolutely. Me too. I've been journaling my entire life, and I've been developing my writing skills over the last couple decades. And I write for many different reasons. Sometimes it's to recall events. Sometimes it's to plan events. Sometimes it's to process things that have happened. Sometimes I got this book called The Artist's Way. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, so I got this book a long time ago, and what they recommended in The Artist's Way to bring in your own creativity and your own your intuition, was to write 3 pages every day, 3 morning pages, they called it. And they said, even if you don't know what to write, just write. I don't know what to write. Just keep the pen moving for 3 pages and just see what comes out. And eventually you're developing this channel. And they said it was a really good way of developing your automatic writing skills. So yeah, I highly recommend that people also, they start journaling, writing things down. This is where a lot of our creativity and our inspiration comes from, when we write things down. And also write down your dreams as soon as you wake up, because those can be very powerful communication as well.
Well, I feel like, I had a dream about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, that I was at a party, and that we all had glasses, and there was somebody going around with a syringe putting something in all our glasses. And I woke up and I instantly knew that these chemicals that they're adding to us will end up in our water supply. So we talked about, recent videos about water, but I don't think personally from my own, well, it's my inspired thought, let's say, and also what I've seen historically is that any chemical that we put into our bodies eventually ends up in our environment, right? So we spray glyphosate, herbicide on our genetically modified foods, it ends up in our groundwater. When people have chemotherapy, right, their urine, their sweat, you will get rid of chemicals. That's why you have to be so careful with someone who has chemotherapy. So I don't think it's any different here when we're being injected with chemicals. It's bound to be out in our environment. Water, that inspired dream came to me, and that's when I did the video about chlorine dioxide and how powerful that is, again, for bacteria. It's like molecular oxygen. Bacteria and not viruses, we don't really have viruses. They're kind of like a made up spooky thing, but bacteria and parasites and fungi and mold, the chlorine dioxide. So yeah, that dream actually stimulated my interest in water purification, and then the videos and writings that I did about that. And then all this is coming out now after a year with a different spin than what I imagine it's about, really.
Right.
So
Right.
our dreams are absolutely guidance when we can document them.
Yeah, if we don't forget them before we even wake up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm going to be doing a video, I think next week, on the power of our dreams and our abilities. Yeah, so there is so much to talk about. I feel like I could talk with you for hours about absolutely everything because you have such a wide um, range of wisdom and like education and knowledge that you share with people. And this is another reason I highly recommend people check out www.healthtruth.blog, because Dr. Dena shares so much information right across the board, from astrology to spirituality to even all sorts of health information and information that's in alignment with the freedom movement and taking action. Thank you very much for doing everything that you're doing and sharing all of that information, because there are people, especially right now, that are looking everywhere for the information that you're sharing. And they're not necessarily in a surrounding of people who are in alignment with that. So if I can get your information in front of a few people that start connecting with you and they start expanding their soul tribe or their like-minded tribe, this is how we move the collective consciousness forward.
Absolutely.
So grateful for the information that you share, and for the truth seekers and for the freedom fighters. And I know that those are all just titles, and we have many, many, many different titles, but for the people who are courageously and bravely doing what you are doing, thank you very much.
And you too, and I thank Susan Stanfill for kind of connecting us, and, because otherwise I don't think I would have met you. We're on opposite sides of the country. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, Susan connected me with a lot of other like-minded people and authors that I have put into my books and I've become friends with. So absolutely. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
I would say to find what you love to do, and you'll know what it is because it'll be an activity that you get involved in that you forget to eat and pee. Because when you're doing what you love, as Deepak Chopra says, right, you live in a timeless mind and an ageless body. And in that vibration, you can be effective out into the matrix. Instead of judging what someone else is doing, right, you're looking inside and just, like I said, being the change that you wish to see. The other thing is, within that loving space, you're living joyfully within the sorrows of the world, as Joseph Campbell says. So there's always going to be something on the outside. There's always going to be war somewhere. right? We can't just have a peaceful world because it's made up of peace and war, light and dark, good and bad, the moon and the sun, yin yang. Like there's always going to be that duality. Trying to kind of just get happy without sad, or trying to get the sun without the moon, it's a depressing journey. Right. So if you can love, John Demartini says love is the simultaneous synchronicity of complementary opposites. When you can bring the opposites together and all the different paradigms of duality, that's when you're truly poised and present and powerful and influential in the matrix. So love what you do what you love, and you'll be rewarded in, abundantly in many different ways. And then learn to live joyfully in the sorrows of the world, giving your greatest service. That's how I would end.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And to be honest, I feel like going back and writing down what you just said, because it was very potent and powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching this video and this conversation, courageous conversation. Please like this video. Please share it with a friend that needs a little bit of inspiration and an encouragement during these times, these difficult times, challenging times of government corruption and medical fraud and global awakening. And also, please subscribe to Lady Braven of the Pride, because we have courageous conversations almost every day. And we all know that courage is contagious. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.